So in 2009, and let me start my few words from there. Like many of you who live in Bombay, I was deeply disturbed by the 26/11 attacks on our city. And I felt at the time that instead of just criticizing the system and analyzing the system as all of us tend to do, I believed I could make a change, and so I stepped forward and stood for elections as an independent candidate from South Mumbai. And as I said, if you were charitable, you thought that was idealistic. If you were less charitable, you thought it was foolish. But for me, it was a life-changing experience. I learned a great deal on that campaign. And what I learned most of all is that if you make the wrong assumptions, you will make the wrong interventions. And so as I walked through Bombay, and it was a campaign which was entirely on foot, it was a padyatra through every slum and every chawl and every building that would give me admission. I learned a lot about our city, and what I thought was bad about our city, when you scraped under the surface, you found something different. And what I thought was good about our city, when you scraped once again under the surface, you found something different. I lost that election. But what I knew at that time was this is something that I was committed to for the rest of my life. And then I had an experience a few months after the election, which I want to share with you. A very senior leader of one of the major political parties came to me and said, "Meera, you should join our party." And I said, "No, you represent something that I stood against, and which I still believe is not good for our country." It was a very amicable discussion. He said, "Yes, that's okay. Why don't you go and join the other party?" And so I said, "Well, you understand, there are many things about that party that I don't agree with, and that's the reason I stood against them as an independent." And so he said to me, "All right, are you going to stand again?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, how many times will you stand?" And it was one of those spontaneous things which I hadn't really thought about. But I said to him, I will stand till I die. And his response was something I have never forgotten, because he, as I said, it was a very amicable discussion until then, but at that point his face grew very hard. And he looked at me straight in my eyes and he said, "Well, then you will lose till you die." It was almost like a slap in my face. And I paused and I thought about it. And my response to him then was that might well be the case, but that I was confident that in my lifetime, someone like me would win. And at that point, the edifice that these people had built would come crumbling down. And I think we saw that moment in Delhi when the Aam Aadmi Party came to power. And irrespective of your brand of politics, I think that was a defining moment for our country. Because what it showed was that people with ideals and integrity, without the use of money power or muscle power, or being a film star, or being a crony capitalist, or being the son or daughter of someone who was powerful, you could stand in an election and you could win an election by fair means. And I think that has been a very, very important thing. And I'm glad I lived to see that day. But after that, I thought a lot about what this man said. And I said, okay, what do I lose if I lose another election? And really, I think, by the grace of God, like all of us, we have everything. So I said, okay, if I lose, I'm disappointed, I'm sad, people will mock me, that's okay. But I haven't really lost anything. But what will I do if I win? And I thought about that and I said, actually, what do I really know about my country? I'm a banker. I've spent 30 years in banking, or at that time I'd spent 25 years in banking. And I've lived mostly in the cities of this country. So I don't really know what I would do if I win. And I think that has actually been one of the problems of our political establishment. We have so many people whom we elect to power who really don't know anything about anything. They have no experience at governing. They are in position because, as I said, they've inherited that position, or because they've come to it by other means. They have no experience of leadership, they have no experience of management, they have no experience of India. And in a way, I was in the same position. And so what I said is that I'm going to invest these next 4 years until the next election in learning. And I took 2 steps. It was a journey, one of the mind and one of the body. The journey of the mind was to say, what are the policies that will work for our country? We are a country now of 1.2 billion people. We need to put in place the right regulations. That young lady said, what will make it easy for young people like yourself to start a business, to run a business, and if it fails, to shut the business, to get on with it? What will make it easy for young people to study effortlessly? I mean, you've been through the educational system. I want to ask you a question. How many of you passed your exams without taking tuitions? Okay. Still a respectable number. Today, if you were to look at that, there would be no one in the audience, right? It's so hard to get through, just get into an educational institution in our country. What do we need to do to change the health system? What do we need to do to get infrastructure going? What do we need to do to get police reforms in place? What do we need for all of these things? And there are tried and tested models, not just in India, but everywhere in the world. What can we learn from the world? And that was my association with the Indian Liberal Group, so I should declare that my policies, my thoughts, are certainly more right of center than left of center, because I think those are policies that have worked. But equally, I said, let me see about this large group of people that we call India. What is happening there? And I feel uniquely privileged to have worked with organizations that allowed me to explore the things that I believed in. So our bank, time. Okay. So time is of essence, so let me keep it short. What I did was I embarked on a journey to a lot of the women we finance. So we finance over 650,000 women through microfinance. And we have found over that period of time, as microfinance has gone through its ups and downs in our country, that there are women who are so poor that they are absolutely on subsistence. So we started a foundation and started giving them grants and found remarkable results. Small grants, 5 to 10,000 rupees. Not in the form of money, but in the form of 10 goats or 20 pigs or 2 beehives. Some means of livelihood. And found that the reports coming in from across the country, really remote parts, were that these women were turning this around and becoming entrepreneurs, earning 50 to 60,000 rupees a year. It's not a lot of money for people like us, but in a village it's more than enough to live a life of dignity, to educate your children, to be someone to be respected. And so I said, all right, let me go and live with these women. Let me go and stay with them. And I started a journey, and over a period of time, went through 15 states, living in the homes for a day and a night with over 120 of these women. And what I can tell you now, before I take questions, is that India is in very good hands. Not in the hands of people like you and me, but in the hands of the backbone of India. Indians are highly entrepreneurial, highly innovative, very decent, very honest, very good people. We are not like that only. We are not that corrupt nation that everyone talks about. But sadly, we have a very small group of very corrupt people who are our leaders. And we need to change that. We need to have a new agenda for this country. At the level of a woman, we need to focus on simple things. Water, fuel, firewood, and toilets. At the level of a nation, we need to focus on empowering enterprise, on education, and on the environment. And I think we need that agenda to happen now. 2014 is a defining year. It's a defining year for your generation. It's also a defining year for our generation. India has to change. Cannot continue the way it is. Let's all be part of that change. Thank you.
It's important for the younger generation to actively participate in politics, and parallelly, what are the changes that the system needs to adapt to enable the same?
I don't think that that's for me to answer, Trisha. Why? Does anyone here think that you don't have to participate in politics? Anyone who thinks you don't have to participate, please raise your hands. I think that speaks for itself.
It's a hard question that...
I'm so glad that you are. I'm so glad that so many of you raised your hands to say that you will vote. That's really important.
But then how can the system enable this?
I think it's like Raghuram Rajan said, the system is not there to enable it. This is our country. This is our future. If you're interested in your future, you have to take a stand for it. You have to fight for it. The system will change if it sees that you're taking a stand. Otherwise, it won't.
Right. Now, given the current state of affairs, if we were to achieve all-inclusive, sustainable growth, what are the immediate measures that must be taken? From the art perspective and from your perspective as well.
Yeah, I think it's very simple. I mean, I think if you just look at it. Are there any entrepreneurs in this group? If there are, please raise your hands.
We'll have a whole bunch.
That's excellent. I mean, I'd really like to ask you what your experience has been. My experience as I've gone around the country is whether you are a Mochi or whether you are a Birla or an Ambani, okay, let me just say Tata or Birla or, one of the big names. It is really, really difficult to do business in this country. There are two things which are really happening in India. It's very hard to work in India and it's very hard to live in India. The conditions that most of the people travel in, we have 14,000 young people working in the country in the bank I was in. I mean, everywhere across the country you're traveling for 2.5 to 3 hours to get back and forth from work. I've had 2 staff who I lost in Bombay who actually fell off the trains, one of whom was recognized by the crushed SIM card on his mobile phone. These are not conditions which you can really tolerate and accept for a long period of time. So what we have to do is to make it simple, simplify it. Cut down the red tape, cut down the bureaucracy, simplify the rules, strengthen the regulation. Raghu is absolutely right. We need more effective regulation, but we need fewer laws and simpler laws. Make it simple to do business. In New Zealand, you can start a company, at least so I've heard, in 25 minutes on the net. In India, it takes you approximately 2 years to fulfill all the criteria, and even then, no matter what you do, you will be in violation of one rule or the other. This is just impossible. So we need to change that.
Right. Now, out of all the parties, why AAP?
Well, there was no alternative. I think for a long time in this country, we've said there is no alternative. I don't agree with the policies of the Congress. I think they have been fiscally ruinous for this country. I can just put that in, 3 words. You can give someone who is less advantaged than you food. You can give them money, and you can teach them a source of livelihood. And as I've seen, and I've seen this across the country, and I could give you a million stories of it, Indians are fundamentally entrepreneurial people, and they don't depend on charity. This is not a nation of people which want to extend their hand for a handout. That's not our nature. Okay? So I don't see any reason why we should be giving handouts and doles and subsidies, which at the moment are 11 trillion rupees. I don't think that's right. I think not only is it fiscally not sustainable, it is basically destroying the moral fabric of this country. Raghu talks about more banks. Gone from village to village. And people say, oh, we'd like to open a bank account. So I was very delighted. I said, oh, wonderful, you want to open a bank account. Then as I started working with the self-help groups, I said, why do you want to open a bank account? oh, we want to save money. So I said, but you have a self-help group. Why do you want to save money? Why do you need a bank for that? They said, no, we want a loan. So I said, but you can get a loan from the self-help group. I said, yes, but if you take a loan from a bank, you don't have to repay it. Right? So we are converting a proud, dignified nation into a nation of beggars and thieves. I don't agree with these policies. I really don't think that's right. As far as the BJP is concerned, I think slightly wiser economic policies, but I don't agree with their stand on religion. I'm a Hindu, and I do believe that religion plays a very, very important place in every person's life. But it is a personal matter. When you leave your house, you leave your personal beliefs behind. It cannot be a matter of state. I believe those are very, very divisive policies for our country. And so I don't agree with these guys. Worse, they're all a bunch of guys in cahoots with each other. I mean, you see what they have done in terms of the RTI, in terms of criminals in politics, all of this stuff. It is the political establishment of India which has become venal, corrupt, incompetent, and about time to get them out. So, I think the Aam Aadmi Party is the right solution.
Right.
Okay, hi, I'm Bhavna Roy. Ma'am, you said that you couldn't join the one party because you didn't agree with everything about them, and you couldn't join the other party because you couldn't bring yourself to agree with them, with everything with them. Do you agree with everything about the Aam Aadmi Party?
No, I don't. No, I think that's a very good question, Bhavna. The point is, I trust the people. They are people with clean hearts and good intention. I can't say the same about the other two parties.
But do they have the abilities to run the country?
May not be. So, let me tell you this. Using a corporate analogy, this feels very much like a startup. The sense you have when you're in the Aam Aadmi meetings is very much of a Rang De Basanti. Bahut junoon hai, bahut junoon hai. They are really enthusiastic, they're really passionate, good ideas, and we are making mistakes. Of course we are. We are young, we are going to make mistakes. We will learn on the way. We are not hardened politicians. We don't know this game. We're not treating it like a game. We're treating this like something that we're willing to give our lives for. This is our country. That's what we're fighting for.
Right.
My name is Harsh Desai. My question being, till now, Aam Aadmi Party has not defined itself with any ideology, but all its members are having a personal ideology. Is this scary that tomorrow democracy will turn into a mobcracy?
So Harsh, let me ask you this. Do you or do you not want a voice? Do you not want your voice to be heard? Or are you happy for some party to have that voice? As far as I'm concerned, I would like my voice to be heard. I think the last discussion that we had on social media is a very interesting one. What social media offers each and every one of us is our voice to be heard. For the first time in the history of mankind since we were small nation states, we have the possibility of true Athenian type of democracy. Your voice can be heard. This is a democratic party. They do have their voices. Insofar as the ideology is concerned, it is evolving. Of course we will need to have an economic policy. Of course we will need to have a foreign policy. You will notice I have been very active on social media. For the last 1 month, I have been completely silent because I believe that people within a party, when I was an individual, as an independent, I could speak my voice. As a member of a party, just as a member of an organization, you have to listen to the voice of the organization and try and speak in one voice, right? I mean, I do accept that. So I have remained silent. Some others have spoken their voice, and you heard Arvind on that. He said, well, if you're a party spokesman, you will speak for the party. Otherwise, you're entitled to have your own voice. So in fairness, this is democracy in its proper form, right? We don't have a high command who says, you shall say this or thou shalt not say that. I mean, that's the point.
Right. We'll have to wrap this session. Thank you, ma'am. It's been a pleasure.